Let's take a look at the pairing logic for the radio and the receiver. So first, let's look at how pairing is done. So when you want to pair your radio with a new receiver, obviously you want your receiver to be off, so that would be your drone off. And then you enter pairing mode on your radio by pressing these two buttons, the two buttons on the left, powering up, waiting for those LEDs to blink and let it go, and now it's in pairing mode. Then you can move the radio out of the way. Then you can power the receiver, and it's going to start blinking, telling me that it's in pairing mode. So I can just bring the radio over, and then it blinks a couple of times. That means it's pair. It has the new information from my radio. So I can simply power cycle, and I can arm my radio. Let me move this all the way up. And you can see that I have a connection. So if I power off, it goes off. Don't have a connection anymore. So let's look at the logic for the receiver first. So on the receiver, when you first power up, this is the function where you power up. It does some initial settings, but the important one is that it loads a setup with default settings that the radio and the receiver know what they are. They're identical, and they're always going to be the same. These are only for pairing. And then it says say variable to 1. So this is a key variable that is going to indicate when pairing is done. So once all of that is done, it goes into receiving mode, and then it loops for 5 seconds or 100 times. And it waits 50 milliseconds in each time, and it blinks an LED. So this one is waiting for either the timeout to expire or for this variable to change to some other value. As long as it's 1 and it's less than 100, it's just going to keep looping. Once it's done, it'll come out of it. It'll read whatever settings are in memory, and it's going to load that setup, and it's just going to wait for a connection from the radio. So this would be after its pair is ready to receive data and start sending that data to the flight controller. So in the when data is received, an interrupt is called, and then so this will be the entire interrupt code. So when data comes in, if this variable was 1, which is set to 1 at the beginning of power up, then it calls this function, and if it's not 1, then we're receiving data. So this is actually channel data, and we're good to go. But in pairing mode, in the first 5 seconds, it goes into this function. And in that function, this one here, there are two things that need to happen in order to get new configuration from the radio. So one is the radio needs to be very close. The RSSI needs to be less than 60, or if you do less than minus 30 for the RSSI. So the radio needs to be fairly close to be able to pair. And also the last 3 bytes out of the 6-byte packet need to be 170, identical 3 bytes, the last 2 bytes. If those two conditions are met, the RSSI is below 60, and these 3 bytes are equals 170, then it's assumed that the first 3 bytes have valid configuration. And the configuration is the sync word, the bandwidth, and the channel. Those are stored in memory. Pairing is changed to 2. That means that once pairing is changed to 2, we can assume that we have a good pairing and we can exit. So at that point, this will exit. It would read the memory, which now we have a new configuration, load the new configuration, and now we're receiving packets and we're good to go. On the radio side, it's a little more involved. So in this one, at the beginning, right here, so when it first starts, I have 3 variables. I have pins top right, and pins left. So pins is this 4 pins. This 4 pins on the right, and then this 2 pins, which are these two. Those are used for different purposes for calibration. So pins and pins, top right, both have for calibration. And then we have pins left. So this would be these pins here. Those are for pairing, and those are the ones we're going to look at. So when it first starts, it will check to see if these pins or these ones are pressed. We don't care about those in this video. So we're going to go straight to the pins left. So if pins left equals 0, meaning the 2 buttons are pressed, then it's going to go into this section. It's going to loop until I release the pins. So in the meantime, it'll just signal me that I am entering pairing mode, and it's going to blink an LED, the first red LED, and it's going to keep blinking until I release it. When I release it, it's going to get my last saved settings for bandwidth, and then based on that, it'll set up the LEDs to indicate or to tell me what are my current settings that is transmitting to the receiver in pairing mode. Once I have that, it loads the default pairing settings, which is identical to what the receiver has. And then it enters the actual loop. In this loop, 3 things are happening. One is checking to see if I'm changing the bandwidth. So the bandwidth can be changed by pressing this button. That's what this is. It's checking to see that both buttons are not pressed, but the right one is. And if it is, then it's going to cycle through the next bandwidth setting. So if it's 200, it'll go to 4. If it's 4, it'll go to 8, and so on. And then if I am pressing this button, then obviously it's just going to wait until I release it, and then it's going to continue to the next instruction. If I am pressing these 2 buttons, that means that I am actually not necessarily pairing, but I'm changing the settings of the radio. And the settings that I can change is the channel and the bandwidth. And we already went through that where you can cycle through the bandwidth. The channel is changed at the time of saving. So we have 7 bytes in total that we can use to set the channel number. And those bytes, or those bits, we have 7 bits, sorry. Not 7 bytes, but 7 bits rather. So those bits can be changed by these 6 switches at the top and the throttle. So this would be bit number 0, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. Right. So if you wanted to set channel 3, then you bring everything down, and then you would set the first one. That's a 1, and then you would bring this one up. That's a 2. So 2 plus 1 equals 3. So that would be channel 3. Or if you wanted to set it to, let's say, 67, you bring this one up, and that would be 64, 65, 66, and 67. And then you would save it. And the sync word here, that one is automatically applied, and it's always random based on the current voltage of the receiver. So these are the decimal numbers of the voltage. So it's always going to be different. It saves it to memory. It loops until you release the 2 buttons, and then it signals that it's going to exit. Sometimes it blinks an LED, which is the top green LED. Then it loads the new settings, and it exits, and that's it. The radio is done. It has new settings. It's no longer pairing. It's actually ready to arm. If you're not pressing these buttons, on every cycle of the loop, it's going to take the last save settings you had on your radio. These are not the settings you're changing here, but the last save settings or the last non-working settings of your radio, and it's going to send them via default configuration. So if you have a receiver close by in pairing mode, and by close by I mean almost on top of it, and it's in pairing mode, then it's going to receive that data and it's going to pair to your radio. So once it's paired, the only thing you do is, if you're not going to change the settings, just power cycle. So if you are pairing, and then you pair with your receiver. Once it's done pairing, just power cycle, and then you go into the process of arming your radio, and um, it'll start receiving data, as you can see here. So that is pretty much it. I don't think I forgot anything, so hope it was clear.